Today's episode, I figured we would just get back to basics and do a basic episode defining woke. What is
Thing that they
woke?
do.
Woke, before it was called woke, it was most often called social justice. I still call it social justice a lot. But woke has become colloquially the way that most people are refer to it. So that's the word that most people know. So that's the one I use now. They will say woke started as a word that meant something totally different that Black people were using. That's all well and good. That doesn't matter because words evolve. And that word was popularized by woke white people to mean social justice. Now, it may continue evolving. It may end up meaning something else in the long run. But right now, when people use that word woke, they mean social justice or identity-based Marxism, identitarianism. There are lots of words for it. What has happened is words like social justice warrior and woke, which came from the woke, which came from social justice people. We used to use these words positively to refer to our ideology, to social justice. Because those words are now considered to be pejorative. They say, oh, social justice warrior is a pejorative, woke is a pejorative. Yes, that's because they're mostly now being used critically, because that's a reflection on the ideology itself that those are names for, because people are criticizing the ideology. People are usually using those words in a negative way because they have negative opinions about woke, about the ideology, about social justice. So now they're saying, well, you can't use those words because they're pejorative. They're trying to, again, prevent you from having any criticism, from expressing any criticism by changing the name of the belief system itself. So it doesn't matter what it's called. They may come up with a new word for it in the future. They may go back to calling it progressivism or social justice. But currently, today, it's March 17th, 2023. Woke is colloquially understood to mean social justice. So here's a quick definition. This is after talking about my old ideology. I spent 20 years in woke. I spent 20 years in social justice. I was a true believer in it. After getting out of it the past few years, since 2016, 2017, so like maybe 7 years now, my goodness, in talking about it and trying to better understand it and better explain it to people, this is the definition of woke. Woke is an ideology that is a mutated form of Marxism that says the best way to look at the world is as a competition for power between identity groups. Okay, so Marxism, it's not Marxism. It's evolved from Marxism and from postmodernism, but that doesn't really matter. In this case, Marxism is an analogy so you can better understand it. If you understand Marxism, which is, to boil it down, Marxism is the idea that the best way to look at the world is as a competition for wealth between class groups. And we have to redistribute the wealth between these class groups, and then we'll reach equality and equity and utopia, and everything will be great. We have to forcibly take wealth from some groups and give it to others. We have to forcibly take farms from the wealthy farm owners and give it to the people. Like, that's Marxism. Woke, or social justice, also called identity Marxism, is similar. It's an analogy, but it says the best way to look at the world is as a competition for power between identity groups. And we have to redistribute power between these identity groups so that we can achieve equality, equity, utopia. So they're not concerned with wealth as much as they're concerned with power that these different groups have. That's a very easy, quick explanation. It's a belief system. Woke is a belief system that says the best way to look at the world is as a competition for power between identity groups, and that what we need to do is redistribute power between these identity groups until we reach equity and utopia. There's more we can talk about in regards to woke. This is why when people define it, you'll see people putting it into their own words, and they're right. They're describing different facets of it. There are a couple of characteristics of the woke ideology that are often used to describe it, which are true. Woke is an illiberal ideology. It's an authoritarian ideology, and it's a collectivist ideology. Now, there are lots of illiberal ideologies. There are lots of authoritarian ideologies. There are lots of collectivist ideologies. I'm going to explain how it is all of those things. Woke is illiberal because it supports censorship. That's not liberalism. Woke supports suppressing the opinions that it views to be morally wrong, suppressing speech. It agrees with censorship, self-censorship, and censorship from the government and censorship from corporations. It's against free speech. That makes it an illiberal belief system. Woke is also authoritarian, and there are lots of authoritarian ideologies. This is one of them. Authoritarianism puts the power of the government over a citizen's individual rights. It's authoritarian because it supports the government with force, telling you what you can and cannot say. It supports compelled speech. Excuse me, something else about woke. This is something some people talk about when they define it, and this is also true. Some people talk about how it operates like a cult, like a religion. That's also true. The way that it operates. I would say more, it operates more like a cult than a religion. Not every religion is a cult. If you look up cult characteristics, you'll see several of them that woke fits. So let's just talk about the big one that it doesn't fit. And so this is why a lot of people, I think, have a stumbling block and can't see it as a cult, because there's this one characteristic out of the whole list that it doesn't match. There's not one charismatic leader. Okay. There's no Jim Jones. There's no Charles Manson. There's not that like one charismatic leader. Set that one aside. It doesn't match that characteristic. Let's look at the other cult characteristics. It encourages people to cut off contact with those who don't speak woke, who are not in the cult, who are not a part of the ideology, who are not a part of the belief system. It encourages you to sever contact with them, whether they're friends or family. I'm sure you guys have seen your own examples of this all the time. In my case, I slowly started cutting people out of my life who were not woke. I unfriended them on social media. I made sure they weren't a part of my ecosystem. I stopped hearing their opinions. Much like a cult, I became surrounded by people in my real life and online, and in the publications I chose to read and the media I consumed. I became surrounded by only people who were speaking woke or woke adjacent. Close enough, right? That's cult-like. Another way in which woke is like a cult, you're not allowed to ask questions. So you're not allowed to question the dogma or the tenets of the ideology. It's all stuff like that. At first I was thinking, they've lost their way. They're just confused. This isn't the ideology. That's what I was thinking. I thought what I was seeing was a bug, not a feature. It's a way, that's a way to put it. But it is a feature. Censorship is a feature of woke. Violence is a feature of woke. Because it's an authoritarian ideology. All authoritarian ideologies support censorship. They all support violence. They all support the government over individual rights. I started to wake up. I started to have questions. So I was sharing some of these questions. I started getting outside of my cult. It's the best way to put it. I started trying to understand why people voted for Trump, and I started listening to them instead of to the people in my cult, instead of to the woke. Imagine that. like going to a primary source. But in a cult, you don't do that. You don't listen to people on the other side. You don't listen to people. You're told not to. There's all these reasons. And psychologically, It's weird because when you're in it, you don't even realize you're doing that. You have all these received opinions that other people have given you, that you trust, people in your world, media sources you trust. And at first, I didn't even realize these were received opinions. I thought these were my own opinions. But I had formed this opinion, received this opinion from my echo chamber. That's what we all think, right? That's what my media tells me to think. That's just one example. There are countless examples of things I had never examined on my own. But in woke, if you're woke and you're listening, and I would ask you, doesn't it feel kind of suffocating that you're not allowed to do that? It's sort of like Daryl Davis. He's the black guy who's pulled 200 white supremacists out of the KKK by befriending them because he had great love for them. He did not view them as evil people. He viewed them as people inside of an evil ideology who had an evil belief system. And that's how he pulled them out. And that's how I view woke people. Not all of them. Some of them are full on evil. The ones who are in it with bad intent, yes. They've let darkness possess them. That's the way I view those people. They're not open-minded. They don't engage in good faith. They don't really have they don't want to hear what you have to say. They don't want to have a conversation. Put those people aside. There are people who are in it, though, who are not like them. There are people who are in it who are open-hearted, open-minded, big-hearted even, and who are naive, who are being used. Brett Weinstein calls them the useful tools. There are people in it who are being used to push this evil ideology. And they really believe that it's about ending oppression, ending racism, ending sexism. And they don't even realize that they are foot soldiers for the very things they think they're fighting. And those are the people that I love, even though they're in it.
Thanks for watching this clip from Deprogrammed with Keri Smith. If you liked what you heard, see the full show and consider subscribing and sharing this content with others.